We're so professional.
We're pros here.
Yeah. Now let's see if there's anybody on the internet, the interwebs, that
All right.
wants to find us.
We're coming to you live from Atlanta right here on stage, where
Yes.
Dweezil is going to be playing in about, how many hours is that going to be about?
The show's at 8 o'clock.
8
so,
o'clock.
Yeah, probably another 5 hours. Hello. There's
What's
a
up,
couple
everyone?
people. There's still a few tickets left if anybody wants to come to the show tonight.
Anybody in Atlanta, come down. Even if you're not in Atlanta, you got plenty of time to drive.
Yeah.
Live in Atlanta. Adam, let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. This is your chance to ask
Hello.
Dweezil. Normally, I ask the questions, but you guys can ask the questions.
This one guy's going to drive from Dubai. That sounds good.
Let's see here.
Hi from Sweden.
We want to know who's from Atlanta here.
Lots
So,
of folks.
anyways, welcome, Dweezil.
Oh, thanks.
This is we just had lunch, and
We're going to be playing some music. I have a master class thing that I'm doing in about, I don't know, about a half hour from now. But this tour is called Choice Cuts, and we have learned a lot of new music, things we've never played before. We've been doing bizarre things, like there's a jingle that my dad did that is for the Remington Razor Company, and they didn't accept this jingle. But
Wow.
Linda Ronstadt sang the background vocals on the recording, and we learned it as something to play live on stage, which is pretty hilarious. But there's all kinds of new stuff that we've been playing. Yes, I'm still using the Axe effects there, Jim.
I was actually going to ask you about that. And are you using the XFX 2? Which one are you using?
It's the Axe effects 2. I do have the newest one, but I haven't had a chance to really dive into it yet. I use 2 Axe effects 2s to make all my sounds, and I was hoping that I would be able to make all my sounds in just one Axe effects 3, but so far I still run out of DSP. Even though it's like 6 or 7 times more powerful than a regular Axe effects.
Okay, so his pedal board's down here. I can see it, and it looks pretty frightening at how much stuff is on it.
There's a few things.
It looks very organized, though, Dweezil.
Yeah, well, you have to be organized.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, it looks good.
Yeah, well, you see the one thing there, the big sign that says "Listen."
You have to remind yourself,
I
right?
do. Well, because that's one of the things I tell people when we're like talking about guitar playing and stuff is that it's one thing to practice on your own to a metronome and stuff like that, but when you actually play with people, I find a lot of times people don't really listen to what's going on. They're just sort of in their own world. And even for me, with years of playing, the only way that you get to practice listening is by playing with people.
Yeah.
And so you do have to remind yourself, because you can easily just start going into your own world. And the playing is always so much better when you're actually like listening to people and having a conversation. Like if the drummer plays a drum fill that you can pick up on the rhythm of, or the bass player plays a line that you can, sort of answer, that kind of stuff, you can only practice by playing with people.
That's right. I mean, that's something I tell people, is that there's no substitute for actually playing by yourself. You have to interact with other musicians. Wait, see, people keep asking about Strat or SG.
This whole show is an SG. I do play Strats on certain songs sometimes, but so many songs segue in the show, and I just have to find a way to use the one guitar and get all the sounds with the one guitar. But my guitar is pretty customized because it's got a Sustainiac in it, and I can get some sort of Strat type of sounds even with the SG, but it's I think it's really when you do a show like this and most of the songs segue, like we have times where we'll play something and it'll be like half an hour before you get a break from, like even just a tune again or something, so it's, you need a stable guitar that can do a lot.
I meant to ask you, how do you do, what kind of monitoring do you do? You wear in-ears for this?
We use in-ears. It makes it pretty consistent. We have like the mix, and this is always interesting too, is like if you talk to different musicians on what they listen to during a live show, Like for me, I want it to sound like the record, and I want my guitar to be a little underneath everybody.
Uh-huh.
You know, I like to hear everything, and then, you know, I can still hear, even with the in-ears, I can hear a little bit of stage spill from behind me. You know, we don't play particularly loud, you know, but other musicians, though, have really weird mixes. Like if you listen to the keyboard player's mix, it's like tons of keyboards and a little bit of everybody else. And maybe not even all of everybody, you know, like. So it's hard to imagine playing a show where you're not hearing every single thing that's going on, for me.
Okay, so when you first started out, though, gigging years ago, you'd use wedges and things like that,
And I'd
right?
still try to get everything in there, you know, so that I could hear all the instruments, you know, because I want to be playing to all of the music,
Sure.
not just like, oh, I just need some kick and snare, you know. It's like I couldn't do it.
But it makes sound check go a lot faster, though, too, right?
It helps.
With your in-ear. I mean, is this
Yeah.
room going to sound any different, you think, than where you would normally play, or do the in-ears pretty much take that out
The
completely?
in-ears take out most of that. It will. Some venues, though, depending on the surfaces, you know, this place has they've done a lot to improve the sound in here.
Yeah,
but
they've changed this place a lot.
But it has a lot of hard surfaces. You know, there's concrete floor, there's brick walls, so there's going to be a lot more reflections that we will still hear from, you know, stuff that's getting into the mics that are going.
Yeah.
Into, so it'll sound different when people are in here compared to sound check. But there's some places that you play where the acoustics are just not great, you know, in general. And so you're struggling through a sound check and hoping that it will be made better by what sound engineers refer to as meat baffles. You know, the people that come to the
Never heard
concert.
that before.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, questions for Dweezil. Do you expect to come to Arizona anytime soon?
Well, unfortunately, we were just there. We started the tour in Arizona. We may come back, though, before the end of the year. We were just in Scottsdale.
Okay. Mr. Zappa. Okay.
Yes. Ooh. Back to Norway. We love coming to Norway. We will definitely come back. I'm not exactly sure when. Hopefully this year, but if not, for sure next year.
South American tour.
We've been there once. We'd like to be able to come back. You know, it always has to do with the promoters, and you know, it's expensive to bring a bunch of people and equipment to different places. So you know, we'd love to.
Come to New Zealand.
We were just in New Zealand.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, and now we are coming to Boston, though. Yeah.
What guitar you recommend easily customizable for rock and metal?
Okay, well, it depends on what kind of tuning. You know, if you're talking about that like low tuning, I mean, I don't really play that stuff so much. So I think a lot of the guitars that people are playing these days, that there's that Strandberg style guitar that is built in such a way that can withstand all kinds of different tunings. But if you're just going to be playing something, you know, like if you're talking metal like Iron Maiden or something, you know, you can get away with any guitar, you know. I like playing SGs because it gives you access to the top notes very easily. And they typically, you know, at least the ones I have, stay in tune pretty well, so.
Yeah, I love SGs. Any Euro tour?
Yes, we have some festivals and some other dates that start in July in Europe.
When are you in Michigan? Are you
Coming soon. If you go to dweezilzappa.com, you can see what dates are actually on the books.
string gauges? Okay, so we were talking
Yeah.
about this at lunch about string gauges. His dad, I always heard, used incredibly light strings.
He did, yeah. In the 70s, it was like 7 through 38. You know, so that's really light. But for me, I use light strings on top and a little heavier on the bottom. So it's
Like 9 to 49, something like that?
It's I think I have 9, 11, 16, then 30, 40, 50, I think.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Can people stop asking where Dweezil's? Thanks, Steve. You made history in Argentina.
We would love to come back.
Come to Beaufort, Wyoming. What are you currently listening to? Oh, that's a good question.
You know, I don't get a chance to listen to a lot of new music, but a friend of mine made a great record, guitar record, Julian Lage.
Oh, he's a great player.
He made a great new like trio record, so I've been listening to that a little bit. And there's a guy named Ty Siegel who has some stuff that came out that I thought was good. We might do a project together at some point.
What is the spec on your Strat?
Well, I'm not so good at specs. You know, it's got 6 strings. It has a couple of knobs on it.
It says Fender.
Yeah, well, it does, I think, yeah. But I do customize a lot of my guitars. I typically, these days on Strats, I've been using a different kind of tremolo system that's called Trem King, and those work well to keep the guitar in tune. But what's different about it is the bridge doesn't work in this axis. It stays flat, and then underneath there's a part that moves like this. And so you're able to actually hit a low string and bend a note, and the low pitch won't change. Like typically, you know, if you have any kind of bridge that floats at all, the low string is
will go out of whack completely.
Yeah. So that solves that problem. So Trem King is something to check it out.
Let's see here. There's a good one that asked about your. Oh man, there's too many things here.
There's a lot going on.
Let's see here.
On tacos, I like all the sauces.
Would you consider it a blessing or a curse to follow in your father's footsteps?
Well, you know, a lot of people start thinking about this in weird ways. Like before I ever did the first version of this tour, which was called Zappa Plays Zappa, you know, I knew there was gonna be people that were automatically gonna get on the hate wagon, you know, and that's just sort of the world that we live in. There's always somebody that's, you know, chained to the wall, eating dog food in their mother's basement and pretending they know everything about everything. But
not on this channel, of course.
But the thing is, you know, I sort of give the analogy that, you know, sometimes when it comes to music or entertainment stuff, people get really offended if the son or daughter of follows in the footsteps. But notice how different it is in the corporate world, where if there's a big CEO and then the son of the CEO takes over, like, oh yeah, good for you, keep it in the family. You know, so
it's true.
It's some weird double standard that, you know, like if you're supposed to be some raging capitalist, you know, like, yeah, follow it. But if you're an artist, oh, that's going to suck. You know, it's like, so for me, you know, I was never concerned about it because I knew that I was in it for the right reason, which was to do the best I could with the music and let the music be the focus. And it's really not about what I do. And so I've been doing this now for 12 years, and you know, the best thing I can say about it is that, you know, it's an opportunity to have fun. You know, these days everybody has stress in life. You know, if you get to come experience something that is totally unique, and my dad's music really fits that word. But you can have a fun night out that is going to give you some surprises and things that, you know, really anything can happen at one of these shows. So it's, you know, I think it's an opportunity to provide a stress relieving service for people to just have fun, and you know, that's why we do it.
I was talking to Dweezil about how he would post things on his Instagram about certain lines that would be hard to play in one of his dad's tunes, and kind of his progress on some of the things. And some of it's very, very hard to play. Yeah,
for sure. I usually have to go, when I'm learning something, I have to go to the hardest part, and I have to see if I can attack that first and see what kind of challenges, you know, come from that, because I'm always looking for the elegant solution for it, because you have to be able to stand there and play it, you know, like it's one thing to sit down and play it, but like standing and like having distractions or whatever, you have to find a way to be as bulletproof as you can.
Do you practice standing up though?
I have to.
You have to, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's exhausting, but you know, it happens.
Is Zappa a blocker?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, I talk about blockers, people that block music. That we were kind of talking about that block YouTube, you know, things that are that will block you on YouTube,
Yeah.
artists that will block.
Well, at the moment, I have no way of being able to, like, if it was up to me, I would not be blocking that. I would want Rick to go through the pieces and ultimately it'd be great to make like a little documentary about the music and come from a musicologist aspect.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, so that would be good.
Say hi to Ryan Brown for you.
Okay, Ryan Brown will be playing with us tonight. He's a great drummer.
Do you mix your music? Wait, what is this? Sometimes it really helps as a musician. Do you mix your own music?
I do, and I do work with other people too sometimes. It's always great to learn from people, but it does help get an idea of, one of the things that I think even more important than the mixing, and we were talking about this earlier, is that when you record something, like, for example, in the old days, my dad's records, or, take a Beatles record, for example, when you only had 4 tracks, you had to commit
That's right.
the ideas and the sound right in that moment, because you had to keep going, and you only had a limited amount of tracks and things available to you. So you had to make the decisions on what the record sounded like right then.
Which is why the tambourine is always so loud on Beatles records.
Yeah. But the thing about that process is that it does make you focus on what is the most important thing for the song, and also the best decisions on the instrumentation and the sound of it. If you just record stuff the way you can these days in Pro Tools with multiple mics and different this, that, or the other, and you leave it up to decision making at the end, it's harder to get a cohesive sound.
It is. So we were talking about this, about how people used to record records like his dad, and you'd put all the tracks at Unity, all the faders, and the song would be mixed, because people would always, that's how people would record back then.
Yeah.
When I first started, you would record things at the level they were going to be, that would be at 0. So your mix would kind of mix itself.
Yeah.
So, whereas today you just kind of get your level, most people do. I try to not do that. Try and commit to the sounds and get them at the right levels, so they just, it's just kind of instant
Makes
mix.
your job easier.
Yeah, because you don't want to be moving the faders too much if you don't have to.
Yeah. I saw a question a few paragraphs back where somebody said, what's the best venue in the world and why? Now, we've had a chance to play at some really cool places. I would say one of the places that we enjoyed was the Royal Albert Hall in England.
Oh, wow.
So that was cool. We got to use the pipe organ in there. We played the song Peaches on Regalia, and we had our keyboard player play the pipe organ. But we also did an ode to one of my dad's performances there, where he had one of his keyboard players play Louie Louie on the pipe organ. So we started Peaches on Regalia with Louie Louie first. So we had to do a little thing, like that. But that's a great place. But there's a lot of cool places, clubs and theaters all over. Even the place that we're playing here tonight in Atlanta is a nice place.
This is a good question here. A live release from this tour.
Well, what I would like to do is, at some point, we're looking into ways that we will be able to easily deliver a download of the concert after.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's a chance that there will be some of that stuff available in the coming weeks or months. We're going to be trying out, some stuff, and we might even be able to do some live streaming from Dweezilzappa.com. So we're looking at some of these kinds of things so that people can experience more of the music.
Cool. How do you, what is this? How do you objectively compare musically yourself to your dad musically?
I don't really do those kind of comparisons. I mean, I think what you can do, though, if you do an A-B comparison to, whatever we play versus a version of my dad's, you can make your own judgment on it. I feel like what we're doing is commensurate with what you'll hear on the original recordings, because our goal has always been to give people the opportunity to hear the music so that it's an apples to apples comparison. So, for example, we don't try to modernize it. A lot of people say, oh, well, if you want to get a new young crowd, you got to make it all hip hop, and you got to do this, stuff. But, I use the analogy that if you were trying to say that you wanted to get people to come to see more classical music, you wouldn't you know, say, okay, we're going to take Mozart or Beethoven,
Make it hip hop.
and we're going to like modernize and go, yeah, Beethoven, yeah, one time, and like have an MC come out and do stuff like that. Doesn't help the music, you know. So somebody's probably thinking, hey, that's an awesome idea, but I don't look to try to modernize the music. We do our best to actually take whatever era that we're playing, and we do the sound design with all the musicians and the instruments, so that it's evocative of that era, you know. So you're not going to hear something that we're going to play where it's just going to be like complete new arrangement that is modern sounding instruments or whatever. We try to make it sound like the old records.
Okay, so there's one question on here. It's interesting. What is your favorite Zappa song?
Tough. There's so many. I think, you know, probably like classical music. I love, there's a piece called Dog Meat, which is something we're actually playing in the show. And guitar-wise, there's so many good ones. I mean, I love Watermelon and Easter Hay, Black Napkins, Sleep Dirt. You know, there's so many great ones, but you know, I think it comes down to like records as well. Like you know, Joe Raj is a record I love. Overnight Sensation, Apostrophe. That's kind of my stuff. Yeah.
Joe's Garage. Okay, let's see here. What do you guys think of having Dweezil here live on a live sounding off? This is pretty great, right?
People are like, what?
What's your favorite riff?
Favorite riff? Well, like guitar riffs, there's some pretty badass guitar riffs out there. I mean, in the world of rock, I mean, Mean Streets, Van Halen,
That's a good one.
Unchained, you know, those two are killer. But I mean, my dad's got some great ones. The riff from I'm the Slime is, you know, is great. There's too many things to choose from, really.
All right. Favorite Zappa guitarists?
Well,
boy,
I mean,
that's
people
you
that
get in trouble
played,
with this.
People that played in my dad's band, really, I mean, Steve Vai is the one that did all the stuff that.
You guys should watch Dweezil's video of him talking, showing Steve when Steve gave him lessons when you were a little kid, right?
Yeah, when I was 12, my dad, he was in my dad's band, and my dad said, hey, would you want to help Dweezil? He's just starting to play guitar. And so Steve made me this notebook, which I still have, and Steve had forgotten about it, but I showed it to him.
He has a video of him showing Steve these things that Steve wrote down for him back then, which was really a great video.
Yeah, it's
fun. Let's see here. Love that video of the lesson book. See that? Look at this. What's it like? Wait. Oh boy. Did you see that?
Oh, I don't know.
No, it's let's see. Did you ever have any formal music training?
Well, not really. I'm not very good at reading music. Like technically, I could read it, but you know, like a first grader could do it better than me. You know, so I always learn everything by ear, and I still do. But I wish I had a little bit more of the ability to utilize some of those skills, because it would be easier for me to get some stuff done. But ultimately, you know, we were talking about it, like some of the things that I'm most interested in are not necessarily guitar specific, but they can help in terms of like improving a vocabulary for improvisation, you know, like a voice leading kind of mentality, but more from like a composer standpoint, you know. And so I'm going to be asking Rick a whole bunch of things about all of that, so I can get some ideas happening. But I love always learning new things. You know, that's my favorite thing about music, is that, you know, there's just so many things, and it can mean so many different things to different people. So I think, you know, if you think that you already know everything, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
Favorite non-guitar instrument?
I like the oboe and the bassoon.
There you go.
You know, I think those sound really cool.
Do you dabble in any other instruments? Piano, violin?
I'm really bad at piano, terrible at drums. I can really only kind of play the guitar, and I try to play the oud, which I've gotten into like fretless stuff, you know, because it's a cool sound. But
Okay, wait. What's your least favorite question?
I don't know. I mean, I get asked a lot of the same questions sometimes. You know, some people for a long time were asking me a lot about my name. But
This is good. What would your dad think of this current music market?
well, I mean,
That's hard to say, right?
yeah, I mean, he already sort of was predicting, you know, that it would just become a corporate mess.
Yeah.
And
So he wouldn't be surprised at all what's
well,
going on.
but the thing is, like the industry itself imploded, and it operates in a way that is pretty shameful. But on the other hand, there are options to get to be able to hear music that you wouldn't.
You never
hear.
would have had.
Yeah,
Right.
And so in that way, he'd probably be excited about that. But it's still harder to find for that music to find a large audience. You know, so. You know, theoretically, anything could be popular if it gets enough exposure, you know?
Right. Did your dad like the pig nose amp? What?
Yeah, he used the pig nose amp. You remember those things? They were like
Yeah, of
this
course.
big, and they had like the little pig nose thing.
Yeah.
But he would modify them so that he could use them in the studio in different ways. He would typically open them up and put them in a live chamber, and he would use different mics on the amp. And so a lot of his guitar sounds that have that real mid-range sound, it's the pig nose, and it's his SG.
Wow,
His
cool.
SG had a preamp in it, so he was able to get a lot more gain out of the amp. And so you can actually see him play on a TV show, spacing on the name of the host of the show, but it was in the 70s. He played Black Napkins on a show, and it's him with his SG, and he's playing in the pig nose, right, you know, like on that show.
Okay, so where is that SG right now?
That SG I have,
Right.
the one that was from that the original Roxy SG, but unfortunately, a lot of the guitars that were originally mine, I don't have, because
We won't talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike Douglas show. Was it the Mike
That's
Douglas
right.
show?
It was
There
the
you
Mike
go.
Douglas show.
I remember the Mike Douglas show.
How many guitars did my dad have? Different times. He had more or less. So growing up, I remember there being about like 15.
What was the first vinyl that you bought?
The very first vinyl record that I bought, I believe it was Fair Warning, Van Halen.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Did Frank share any of his crazy stories that you could share?
I don't really know what you mean by crazy stories. You know, people think that my dad was probably like a wild man, but he was actually pretty organized and you know, if anything, much more like normal and down to earth than what people imagine. He just had a great sense of humor and a great imagination.
Incredible work ethic, though, right?
He probably worked on average 16, 17 hours a day, like every day. You know, so
Now, would you say, Dad, hey, can we go do something here? And
that was never even like something that was an option, you know. So I would just go into the studio and learn how to do stuff and play music. But I never was saying, hey, let's go play baseball or something like that. That just didn't happen. You know?
that's probably what my kids say about me. Not that I'm anything like your dad, but I'm a workaholic like your dad anyways. That's about the only Masters winner pick. I don't know.
Masters winner pick. I don't know. I do like golf, but I haven't been paying that much attention to it.
The Masters is about 120 miles from here. It's happening.
Yeah, I've actually been over there before at Augusta, but
I don't think Tiger's going to win. He was 4 over yesterday, but
yeah, he's probably not going.
what do you like to do in your free time?
Well, I used to play a lot of golf in my free time, but I
Okay.
have kids, so
Yeah,
I don't get a
that
chance
doesn't
to play
really
much golf.
that doesn't work
So
unless they get until they get a little older, anyways.
yeah, so I don't have a lot of free time. So when I do, I like to spend it with my wife and kids. You know.
Don't let that stop you. That's my brother on there.
Yeah.
That's my brother John. You can say
Nice.
hi to John. He'll say.
Somebody said, "What was my handicap?" And when I was playing well, I got down to a 2, but
Wow.
you know, I definitely, I haven't played hardly at all since having kids. You know, I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, so that'll ruin your golf game real quick.
My handicap was playing golf. How much warm-up time before a show? We actually asked you this.
Well, it's hard for me to schedule enough warm-up time, you know, because I end up with other things that are, you know, take up time in my day. So ideally, I would love to have like 3 or 4 hours, but I never get anywhere near that. You
And
know?
how long is your sound check usually?
About an hour, you know. Some days I'll get more warm-up time than others.
Any advice for young musicians, someone who wants to make a living in the music world?
Okay, well, learn how to design merchandise that has nothing to do with music. Learn how to edit everything, film stuff, and do all of your own promoting, and you'll have a better chance of staying employed, because you're going to need these other things besides the music, because too many people think music's supposed to just be free. You know, like I give the analogy sometimes, you know, like to really record a record well, it costs money, you know, like as much as an expensive car.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
You know, so if you said, all right, my new Maserati is $60,000, and that's how much it costs to make the record, that guy that owns the Maserati wants your record for free. Do we get his car for free? Like, hey, I just spent 60 grand to make this record, let's swap. You know, like they're not going to do that. You know, it's like people think there's this sense of entitlement when it comes to music, and it's a little bit crazy because people have lost touch with what it takes to make the music, and people still think that musicians make a lot of money when they go out on the road, and it's really hard to make money going on the road, especially if you have you know, a large band and all of this kind of stuff. So it's definitely a challenge, no matter how you look at it. But if you want to do it, I just say that you should be in it for the right reasons and be like really excited about the process of making music and being happy about that, the whole creative side of it. You know, because that's typically what motivates the best.
Sure.
People, you know.
Okay, a couple more questions here. Let's see here. Oh, do you have your own studio? And is it an old school setup or is it a box setup? We were talking about this.
I don't have a studio at the moment, but I'm hoping to have one at some point soon. And the concept of recording in the box versus, you know, out of the box with a console or something, I prefer to have like a hybrid, so that you can have the ability to have the project management that comes with being in the box, but the actual sound advantages of being able to use analog stuff in different ways. So I think that there's probably you know, a lot of different ways that people could work, and the technology is so good now that you can get away with doing something completely in a computer,
Yeah.
and having it sound as good as some of the old school techniques. But you know, what it really comes down to is good musicians and a decent amount of good gear. It doesn't have to be like all of the best gear in the world, but a good sounding environment helps. You know?
What DAW do you use? Because I was going to ask you that.
I prefer Cubase Nuendo.
Okay.
And it was one of the first ones that was using the floating point technology.
Yep.
And it's always sounded good to me, but I also I like their working model. They don't make you have to like repurchase hardware and software all the time. And
Yeah.
I just think it's a great platform.
Did your dad, your dad did some amazing live recording. Okay, hold on.
Live recordings and studio overdubs, So the question about, so for example, most of my dad's records come from live performances, and a lot of it being live on stage. But in the studio, it was about live performances as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was rarely like, okay, let's just get a drum track. And, there were overdubs that were done, but sometimes he was working with people that were very adept at being able to be handed a score and just play a part, sight read something, So he worked very fast in the studio. Like, you would not believe the pace that stuff got recorded. I mean, and that's when you see that he made over 65 albums in his career, you have to work at a crazy pace like that. And it was very organized, and they were ready to roll. Like, if you had Johnny Guitar Watson coming in to do a vocal, the tape was recording before he walked into the studio, because you wanted to capture...
Recorded him walking up to the mic,
yeah,
right?
you wanted to capture every little thing that could possibly happen. And so he was just really all about capturing the performance. And that's one of the things that's sort of a lost art, is that, it used to be that an engineer's job was to be able to hear what the people in the room were doing and capture that and make that sound the best that it could be. And so it was really more about, like I said, just capturing a performance, and some of that element is missing because people usually do stuff now where it's all separate and then they put it together. But that was what my dad loved, was just like those kind of moments, the creative energy of when everybody's doing something all together, and then something could change or be different, and that one thing makes it to the record, and it's. Like, sometimes the best thing that you'll ever get is like the first time you play a song. Like, the first time you ever get through the song, if you capture that, that's what the song is supposed to be, And so there's that intangible thing that for people that have never been in the studio or worked in this way, like they can feel it later, as a when they hear the song, but they don't know what it's like to be there in that moment to capture it that way, and that's one of the cool things.
Okay, so Dweezil has to go here, so I want to thank him for being our guest today.
Thank you.
And anybody that's in Atlanta that wants to come down to the show tonight, you should head down. Starts at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rick.